SELSI, spoken easy language for social inclusion.
It's really an honor to be here in Slovenia. I've been following the SELSI project because I'm an advisory board member and I've learned so much from this project. So as I said, I'm always happy to come here because we have good friends, good colleagues, a nice place, very close to my heart, because I think we share many things with Catalonia, where I come from. I want to talk about research. I come from the university. Is it better like this? Yes. I come from the university in Barcelona, and I'm a researcher, so I'm trying to give this perspective. As researchers, we like to learn new things, we like to test if things work, and we like to challenge, say, is this really so? So that's a bit what we try to do. And I will talk about the research that we've been doing in TransMedia Catalonia, a research group in Barcelona. We have been working on media accessibility for 20 years now. We are funded by the Catalan government, and we started working on subtitling, then audio description, and we've moved to other access modes. I will talk first about some previous projects, so please bear with me because I will be repeating some projects that you already know maybe, but then in my second part I will talk about the WELL project, which is a project that we are doing now. So I'll try to do these two things in about 20 minutes, yes, more or less. So the starting point for our research on easy to understand language is that we were researching subtitling, even we were researching dubbing, audio description, so modalities, services related to linguistic and sensorial accessibility. But we wanted to move also to cognitive accessibility, to take into account the needs of other users. So at one point in our research group, and I want to highlight this is not me, this is not Anna Matamala doing all this, it's a research group. At one point we thought, can we apply easy language to audiovisual media? So we got a fantastic partnership. Some of the partners are here, and we developed the EasyIt project. This is the first project, big project, in which I was involved on easy to understand language. On screen, we have the web page. After a few years, it's still active, and it's in easy language, it's in different languages. So I invite you to check this. But also, if you want to learn about easy to understand language, if you want to get training materials for free, you can go also online, and we have a platform at transmediacatalonia.uab.cat/easyit. And there, if you are a teacher, you can download materials in different formats, video, slides, audios. You choose what you want and you change it as you want, as long as you say this is from EasyIt, okay? But if you are someone who wants to learn about that, you can just keep clicking and you will find videos that you can watch. So there's a whole lot of materials that were created collaboratively, and you can access them for free. And that lovely pencil created by RTV Slovenia will explain you in a video what you will find in those materials. During EasyIt, we had on screen some snapshots of what you will find. Just go online and hopefully everything will work. During EasyIt, we had very nice discussions. More theoretical discussions, but I will briefly mention that. One aspect was how should we call, all this? Easy language, plain language, clear communication. There were so many different terms. In the end, we decided to refer to easy to understand language or easy to understand languages as an umbrella term. And within this umbrella term, we have the most simplified version, which would be easy language, and then a less simplified version, which would be plain language. And all along this continuum, well, there may be differences. This was inspired by Professor Mas and was agreed in the project, and even with the ISO standard on easy to understand language that we co-edited with Esther Hedberg here, we use this term. We also discussed other things. We tried to mix easy to understand language with audio description, with subtitling, and with journalism. I'm not going to get into much detail, but we have academic publications, articles on this topic. But after a researcher always asks questions. A researcher doesn't believe what people tell us, or at least that's what we try. And the first question we ask ourselves is, does easy language really improve comprehension for users with reading difficulties? So if we use easy language, does it really work? Will you understand a text better? And then I was very interested in oral text, in speaking, like in SELSI. So another question we said is, how can we move all this knowledge about written easy language into oral? So how can we make oral texts which are easy? How can we speak easily? One of the first investigations we did was by a PhD student of mine. The student is called Mariona González Surder, and Mariona is doing now a PhD thesis, 3 years working on a research project on written easy language. The first thing we did was look at scientific publications, articles that dealt with easy to understand, easy, plain language, and so on, with guidelines, and that included testing. I'm not going to get into the details. There is the reference to the paper there. But the thing is that at the end, after searching for publications in English, Catalan, and Spanish, we came up with 617 papers, a lot, that could be related to that with a keyword search. So you enter some words on the system, and we came up with more than 600 papers. Once we started reading the summaries, the abstracts, 20. And when we started reading the full papers, only 6 dealt with easy language and empirical testing with users. Okay? So I'm sure there's more. There's more publications in other languages. Obviously, when you do a search, something is lost, but still it's quite symptomatic. So we thought, oh yes, there is a PhD that Mariona can do in that regard. So Mariona is doing a PhD in which she tested 3 different things with users with intellectual disabilities and users without intellectual disabilities. So she tested first omissions versus explicitations. What do I mean? There's a recommendation to repeat things rather than not saying the subject or using pronouns. Keep repeating things. So does it really work? There is also this recommendation, use simple clauses, not subordinate clauses. Let's not use very complex sentences. Let's use easy sentences. And there is another one, which is let's use images to support us. And she tested both photos, and drawings. Yeah. She had 26 persons with disabilities, 26 without, and she tested for comprehension, do we understand it better, and preferences, do you like it, okay? And, well, she's finalizing the thesis. So far, no effect on comprehension. So, yes, I'm sorry to say that, but there is an issue of preferences. So very often, I will not get into very detail, I have all the data, I can share it with you, but comprehension, okay, not really an effect there if you use one thing or the other, but preferences, yes. For instance, persons with disabilities like photos, they didn't like drawings. The other profile, it didn't matter. So we see the main headline here is in terms of preference, in terms of understanding, we didn't find statistical significance, but in terms of preferences, Yes. That's what we've done recently. I will talk now, second part of my talk, about where we are now, which is the WELL project. The WELL project, from written text to oral text in easy language, easy audios in cultural visits and video games, is a project funded by the Spanish government. It started last year. We tried 2 years ago, but we were not successful. We improved it and we got it. And the background is a bit that we were reading, we were finding examples of easy spoken language, where we have easy radio, Latvia, for instance. There are easy news, Slovenia. In Argentina, there is one thing which is called audio description for intellectuals. I translate it literally, okay? And it's like an audio description for persons who might have difficulties understanding what's going on screen. There's also easy interpreting. So for instance, now the interpreting could be into a simple language. There are also easy audio descriptions, easy audio guides, and I repeated things because I was wrong there anyway. There was also an experience in Madrid of easy audios in a theater. So people would go to the theater and someone would be explaining what's going on where something was more complex. So all that got us thinking, okay, can we research easy audios in unidirectional text? What does it mean? It's not about conversation. What you are doing in SELSI is someone is speaking to an audience, but there is not interaction in this project, okay? Without dialogues, so we keep it very simple. Someone is explaining something to an audience into situations. On the one hand, we'll have tests on video games. That's what my colleague Carme Mangiron is leading. On the other hand, it's what I'm doing. It's more on cultural aspects. All this came out of discussions with the user association. I'm in touch with the user association in Barcelona, and they said we often go on cultural visits, leisure visits, with our people from our association, and what we find there, the explanations are too difficult, are too complex. This is not being recorded. I find them very boring sometimes. I cannot listen to that. So can we find a solution? So this is a bit what we are researching. The first year, what we are doing is reading, okay, what people are saying about all these ideas. We are having discussion groups and interviews. So we are talking to the people, we are reading to see what is out there. Yes? And then, in the second stage, is some tests. Now we are focusing on something related to the way we speak. Then we'll do some field work. I will not get into that. If you get my presentation, I can share it, I can put it in open access. There are some articles where all this is explained for those of you coming from academia. What have we done? Okay, we are, first of all, we've prepared an article discussing what is listenability. Elisa there has written about that. But when we talk about the written text, we talk about legibility, so we can see the letters, the layout is fine, and readability. But when we move to the oral text, probably the concepts should be around intelligibility, so the speech perception, you can't recognize the sounds, and listenability, the ease of listening to a text. So we've done some theoretical work on that, and we've also seen that some recommendations talk about all these things. They give recommendations about the pace, about the pauses, about the volume, about the accents, about the information you will be selecting, about the vocabulary, the words that you are using, about the emotions, about the voice, about the audio quality. There's a lot that's been written about that on the recommendations. But again, we always say, is this right? Let's talk to the people, let's test things. So Marina, that's another PhD student of mine, Marina Pujadas, is doing a PhD on this topic, and she interviewed 11 people who create easy audiovisual content. So people who do easy interpreting, who do easy audios, who do easy anything that is oral and is easy. And with Estella Unsins, a colleague of mine, we also did 3 focus groups with end users and professionals about this idea of easy audios in cultural settings, because maybe we think it's a fantastic idea. We talk to all of you and say, this doesn't work. So we need to ask about that. In the interviews, Marina, most people told her that they are using the same recommendations for written language into oral language, which is in line with the SELSI results, if I'm not mistaken. That prosody is very important, the speed, how fast I speak, the pauses, and the pronunciation, okay? That, of course, when you are in an oral environment, there are some restrictions in these films and all this that needs to be made accessible. And on expressivity, there were diverse opinions. Again, this will be published, but we learned from the professionals. But then we also went not to the professionals creating this easy audio, so easy content. We went to an association and we talked to professionals and to users. And we narrow it down to cultural settings, okay? So I told you about video games, culture. I focus now on culture. So we are working on that. We did the focus groups and very interesting ideas. First of all, this importance of interaction. Said, yes, you want to do this only on one direction, but there are other systems. We are maybe beyond the audio guides into more interactive content. Also, this idea, which we absolutely share, it's not about producing a content for persons with disabilities. It's a content for everybody. And that's, I think, it's something we all share. Maybe a highlights version. And also, how should we call that? Because sometimes the term has an impact on how people receive that content. When we talk about the users, they were very happy about the museums in Catalonia. They have very good accessibility services, but they also highlighted this need, okay, before we go to the museum, everything needs to be planned. We cannot get there and everything is disorganized. We need a good planning of that. They said, yes, audio, yes, but what about having images there? We like to have the interaction. We like to have the images. So even this idea of maybe rather than easy audios, move towards a virtual agent. So I don't know how this project will end up. Maybe we started with easy audios and we'll end up with something else. Anyway, so we talked to the people, and I think I have 4 minutes, to explain some initial testing. Let me recap. So we talked to the professionals. They said, yes, we used the written recommendations and so on. We talked to the users. And then, of course, we analyzed the written recommendations. And we thought that there were 2 aspects, and this coincides with SELSI. We've been talking about that when we had meetings, that were very, very important. The speed, how fast I am talking, and the pauses. So Marina, again, one of my PhD students, it's so confusing because one is called Mariona and the other is Marina, and I always mix the names, so don't worry if you get confused. So Marina finished her test, now she's analyzing, so I'll just briefly mention that because of course she needs to finalize the analysis and present everything. And she did some testing with speed in Catalan. She had a group of persons with intellectual disabilities, a group of persons without disabilities, and we included a group of people learning Catalan. Okay? So that was, because we thought this may be also a target group. There were 35 people per group, so we can imagine the effort she put in all that testing, the time of all this, because it was individual testing. And she tested 130 words, 150, 170, 190. To sum it up, 4 different speeds, okay? So far, in terms of comprehension, so did they understand the audios? The slowest worked better, definitely better for persons with disabilities. And the other groups didn't really mind. There was not an effect, so all the speeds were fine. In terms of preferences, most people went around 150, some 150, 170. But it's also interesting, Marina is looking into that, because although for persons with disabilities, the slowest was the best to understand, it was not the preferred. So there's something there, always the comprehension and the preferences. We need to look into that. And then she tested also the pauses at the end of sentences, so what I did right now, but also pauses in the middle of sentences, what I try to do now, okay? So what she did is, again, 4 different types of pauses. I will not get into the details, because what you want to know is the results, more or less. So in terms of comprehension, we didn't find any differences. So there was not an effect in this test, okay? But the preferences, there were differences, okay? Once we publish all this, I can share the results, because I think it's interesting to see how sometimes comprehensions and preferences differ. But of course, this needs to be tested with other audiences. This needs to be tested with different languages, because we may use things differently. And these results, of course, do not obviate the importance of easy to understand language in all its varieties. That's what we are working towards. That's what we are defending. So what are our next steps? More tests, scientific tests on different aspects, so that we can learn more about what really works and what people prefer. We are collaborating with other universities to replicate these tests within the WELL project. And then we'll move to what's called the use cases. So my idea is, for instance, for the cultural visits, to develop some materials. I don't know exactly. Go on a field trip, go on a day trip with the association, and see how things work in context, not in lab, which is what we've done so far. And I think that's 20 seconds. I want to draw your attention to the AccessCat network. This is a network I'm leading in Catalonia of research groups interested in accessibility. If you want to join us as a supporting organization, some of you have already done it, please contact me or check the website. And I also want to mention this MAP Access, which is a resource where if you are interested in media accessibility, you can find a lot of information. Thank you very much. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
SELSI, spoken easy language for social inclusion. Partners are Zavod Risa, RTV Slovenija, Dyslexieverbundet, Università degli Studi di Pavia, Vieglas Valodas Agentura, Vilnius Universitetas, Vsi informacijos kaupimo ir sklaidos centras. Funded by the European Union.